Welcome to another edition of the It's Cavalier podcast. It's your boy Mack, and you guys know what the deal is. Game 3 between the Boston Celtics and the Cleveland Cavaliers, which took place at Rockin' Mortgage Fieldhouse. It was rocking. It was definitely the fans came to support, came to show some love, and you definitely love to see that anytime in a playoff series, especially when your team is not favored to come out with a victory. Not much, honestly, that I can say about this one that, you guys probably haven't already heard. Cavs ended up losing 106-93, but honestly, I don't feel terrible about this loss. Definitely some positives, and there are obviously some negatives as well. But before we get into all of that, if you are new to the channel and you want to help support in a small but helpful way, consider becoming a paid member on Patreon. The link will be in the description. And if you're new, if you're not yet a subscriber, consider hitting that subscribe button so you don't miss out on daily Cavs content. And obviously, don't forget to smash that like button to help a brother out. That said, this game, like I said, it didn't piss me off nearly as much as the end result would indicate. There were things throughout that honestly I did not love, but I thought that the main takeaway here is that if some guys knock down some shots, this is very much a game that Cleveland could have walked away with. Now, the big number that stands out to me, Donovan Mitchell, right? 33 points on 12 of 22 from the field. This man had 23 points by halftime, guys. He dropped 6 triples. He basically was the Cavaliers. Nobody stepped up. That's what this essentially boils down to. We got the lone comment here says DG's got to go, man. I've been a supporter of his, but man, dude is terrible in the playoffs. As you know, for me, I'm not at that point, right? And you are entitled to your own opinion. I'm just not at that point just yet. I'm not going to use this singular game as the reason to point to move on from DG. He hasn't been great throughout this playoffs. He's had his moments. I thought he came on down the stretch of game 2 and made some pivotal plays, but again, he just wasn't the max contract type of guy that we've become accustomed to seeing him be prior to the start of this season. And back-to-back seasons, he looked like an all-star. He just hadn't been that this season due to a litany of issues. Some of that is the fact, the injuries, right? But I can't continue to use that as a coping mechanism for DG's continued struggles. But at the same time, I understand the frustrations, right? I completely understand the frustrations behind the level of play and that he has contributed to this Cavaliers team this year. The stat line for Garland tonight reads 15 points, 3 rebounds, 6 assists, but he was inefficient as hell. 6 of 15 from the field, including just 1 of 6 from three-point distance. And that's why I led off the episode by saying, look, if they knock down some shots, if people outside of Donovan Mitchell knock down some damn shots, it's a completely different game. We may be talking about a Cavaliers victory. So I'm not completely down in the dumps. If you are, I understand it. You're entitled to fan however you want. But that's not me. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to sit here and just bitch and moan and complain the entire episode because I didn't walk away feeling like that. All right. Donovan Mitchell obviously carried 33 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists. Again, 12 of 22 from the field, hit 7 huge triples. And he basically was the focal point of the Cleveland offense, as he often is. He ended the first quarter with 11 points, right? Going 4 of 8 from the field, including 3 of 5 from distance. And, over on general, again, 23 points by halftime, which saw him drop down 3 additional triples. It was a phenomenal sight for him. And he continues to do crazy things throughout these 2023-24 playoffs. And hopefully that continues. But we know what the deal is. Somebody else has to step up. Somebody else has to step up. I thought Evan Mobley, for what it's worth, in his 37 minutes, I thought he did just as good as you would, just as good as he possibly could at this point without being given too many touches. He was 7 of 11 from the field. I thought that the Cavaliers did an excellent job in game 2, making sure that he was heavily involved. I did not I didn't walk away with this one feeling like that was the case necessarily. I did feel like Boston made it a point to try and collapse on him a little bit more and make sure that their presence was felt down low. But at the end of the day, somebody has to truly step up. It cannot just be Donovan Mitchell. And most people are pointing to Darius Garland. And again, can't blame people for feeling like that. I'm not going to sit up here and make excuses for the guy. I'm just going to say I'm not at the point of trading DG just yet. I need to see how the rest of this series plays out. It's been a pretty rough playoffs for Darius Garland, but again, he's had his moments. To me, the things that really shut this Cavaliers team down was that first half in which LeVert was held scoreless, right? Coming off a game in which I believe Karis LeVert came off of 21 points in game 2 and looking like he was as we continue to reference this tweet from Chase, our good old buddy old pal in the Cavaliers chat. I don't know who he was possessed by tonight in that first half, but it wasn't good. He was a no-show, and that was a huge issue for this Cavaliers team that essentially was just I don't even know if we want to call it 8 deep because Sam Merrill, if I'm not mistaken, he didn't play in the first half. It was basically 7 deep. Karis LeVert played 30 minutes tonight. Dean Wade, it was great to see Dean Wade out there. Love it. He got a huge ovation as soon as he entered the game, and the crowd erupted when he knocked down his first triple. That was truly an awesome sight. And that man can be such a valuable piece of the puzzle, just purely based upon what he brings to the table from not only a defensive standpoint, but from a spacing standpoint. But even in Wade's return, right? You couldn't get enough from the Cavaliers bench. 20 points from the Cleveland bench. And in the first half, that was basically nothing. You didn't really get anything at all. Karis LeVert did come on in the second half, but it was too little too late. As I see Tom K saying down here, Cavs nearly fall all the way back, but hold too deep. Yeah, I mean, anytime that happens and you have to expend a huge amount of energy just trying to climb out of a hole that you dug yourself, it's generally not going to yield favorable results for you. We've seen this Cavaliers team overcome it even in this postseason, right? But most of the time, it's just not going to be the case. And that's exactly what happened tonight. Credit to the Boston Celtics for responding and coming in on our home court and getting right to business. Jason Tatum, coming off of 2 really unbalanced performances in Boston, mind you, had a really good showing. 33 points, 13 boards, 6 assists. This man just fills up the stat sheet. He really is awesome. 11 of 25, not the most efficient night. The Cavaliers did make it a continued point of emphasis to stick Dean or stick Isaac or Evan on this man, and he was still making shots. It was rough to watch at points just because a lot of his shots were contested, and he made them. And he's just that caliber of player. When you're up against a Jason Tatum, it's similar to Paolo Banchero. The dude is going to make some really tough shots, right? Some long twos out there, especially. And he draws a ton of contact. He was 9-9 from the charity stripe tonight. Phenomenal game from him. Opposite him, as Nikki and I discussed in our last pod, Jaylen Brown, man, he's come to play. 28 points, 9 rebounds tonight, a highly efficient 13 of 17 from the field. And the thing that really got me with Jaylen Brown tonight is just his ability to drive inside, draw a ton of contact, and just really finish, right? The man fought through a ton of contact out there and was still able to knock down a high number of shots, no matter the degree of difficulty. And Jaylen Brown, I'm not at the point of Nikki, right? I'm not going to suggest that Jaylen Brown is the superior player, but I do believe that man is a star in his own right, especially on both ends of the floor. We know what he can do on the defensive side of town as well. But it wasn't just those two as well. Jrue Holiday, after having somewhat of a rough start to the 2023-24 postseason, broke out tonight from an offensive standpoint. 18 points, 8 rebounds. Now that right there, that number, if nothing else sticks out to you from Jrue Holiday's stat line tonight, because it was 18 points, 8 boards, 5 assists, 7 of 10 from the field, 3 of 4 from 3-point distance. He was excellent tonight. especially on the defensive side of the ball, D'ing up Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland. But the thing that really truly sticks out to me about his play tonight was his rebounding. He had some really tough rebounds over the likes of Evan Mobley out there. And we know the Cavaliers, they're kind of playing undersized with, Isaac Okoro starting at the 4 in place of the injured Jarrett Allen. You have to slide Evan Mobley over to the 5 for that, but it does leave the Cavaliers a little undersized. Jrue Holiday is a bigger guard out there, but nevertheless, the rebounding really, really hurt the Cavaliers tonight. They won that battle. The Boston Celtics managed to win that battle 44-35, and it continues to frustrate, right? And on the offensive glass, probably even more so because it allowed the Celtics additional possessions, additional opportunities to score those second chance points. 9-7 in that regard. 9 offensive rebounds to Cleveland's 7. It just honestly felt like Cleveland gave them way too many opportunities, and you can really look at that outside of rebounding as well. When you look at turnovers, they would finish the night with just 8 total turnovers, but guess what? 6 of those, if I'm not mistaken, came in the first quarter alone. That just cannot happen. And the worst part about it is a lot of them were just careless, a lot of sloppy handling of the basketball. Some of them came out in transition. The one that sticks out to me is the ball being passed way past Isaac Okoro in that first quarter and him just not being able to grasp it, not being able to reel it in. But you had way too many head scratchers of turnovers out there that occurred in a pivotal game on your home court. That can't occur. Now, they did turn the ball over less than Boston tonight, and honestly, they've been taking care of the basketball now in these 3 games. Game 5, they had just 5 turnovers. If I'm not mistaken, game 2, they had just 10. Tonight, just 8. That's not a lot. That's actually far below what their postseason average was entering this series. But at the same time, you can't the turnovers are coming at the worst possible times, and that's generally what hurts. It's the lack of shot making from everybody else outside of Donovan Mitchell. It's the careless turnovers. It's the inability to pull down timely rebounds that really kill you, man. That really hurt, and it sucks that we're at this point. But again, I'm not highly discouraged about what I saw. I did walk away feeling like if they were able to knock down some shots, if they were able to get something going earlier than they did, because, again, specifically guys like Caris LeVert, Darius Garland, they really didn't contribute too much in the first half. They just did not. And ditto for, the surrounding players for Cleveland outside of maybe Evan Mobley, who, he's starting to round out his offensive game a little bit more, starting to diversify it a little bit more, but he's got to take advantage of the size disadvantage that Boston has at certain points too. He really has to do that. Mack Strus, his play has been up and down this entire postseason. I thought he had a pretty good game too. And then turns around in game 3, and given it is a tough defensive matchup, I'm sure a lot of his energy is being expended on that side of the floor. But dude, this is what you brought you in for. This is what we brought you in for. 2 of 8 from the field and 2 of 6 from 3-point distance, frankly, is just not going to cut it. You have to be able to knock down some of these looks, and it will be really, really interesting to go back and look at the what the NBA is going to end up considering an open or wide open shot for tonight's game. I'm really interested to see what those numbers are going to look like. I don't have them offhand right now. NBA.com is usually pretty slow with updating that as of recording this, but at the end of the day, I just felt like there were some quality looks out there that Cleveland missed, right? I'm gonna pick on Isaac Okoro in regard to that slightly, just because his 1 of 7 from the field, including 0 of 4 from 3-point distance. I thought that they gave him, similar to game 1 and game 2, I thought that they gave him a ton of space and he wasn't able to make them pay for it. And we all know that is the name of the game with Isaac, who what really truly sticks out is his minutes, right? Just 18 minutes tonight. JB pulled him. I hope that does not continue to be the case moving forward, unless I'm missing something here. He was pulled from the really for the bulk of this one, just because he was not able to contribute a ton from an offensive standpoint. Just rough, man. Just rough. And that's exactly what happened in the New York series. And I get that having Dean Wade back out there, that does kind of change things up because he is a main competitor for some of those minutes, especially considering that Isaac is playing power forward right now. The bulk of his minutes with Evan Mobley having to slide over to the 5 and Dean Wade coming back. And then you add in Marcus Morris, who's going to give you some minutes out there. It's tough. But I understand why JB did it, because if Isaac is not giving you anything from an offensive standpoint, this is frankly not the series that you can get away with him not contributing, especially if you have maybe an option off the bench that might be able to help you out in that regard. Just tough, man. Tough way to lose the game, but at the end of the day, I remain optimistic. Barath Core Party says, I think this game really showed how much we missed Allen. Strus isn't big enough to bother Tatum's shot, and we needed that help defense in the paint. Boston did well taking Mobley out defensively. Yeah, I thought that they ended up countering Mobley and what he was able to do in game 2 very well. They took that and they made it a point of emphasis for their defensive game plan. In regards to the max on Tatum, that was very, very clear to me in the rebounding department, right? There was one specific rebound in particular that Tatum was able to get, or at least in position to get, and Max Strus kind of just pushed him out of bounds. This is towards the end of the game, but it was very, very obvious that, obviously, if you're looking at the heights of these two players specifically, yes, he has the height advantage. But not only that, Max Strus and Jason Tatum, in terms of sheer athleticism, I don't really think that there is a competition there. It's Jason Tatum every step of the way. And Tatum actually came into this postseason as Boston's rebounding leader, if I'm not mistaken, at 8.3 per game. He is their leader, and he showed why that is the case today. He's able to fill up the stat sheet in that regard with 6 rebounds. If I'm not mistaken, 13 rebounds, actually. You're not going to be able to get away with playing small against this team in that starting lineup when basically 4 out of your starting 5 are below 6'6", right? You got Darius and Donovan, obviously undersized backcourt. Max Strus is honestly 6'5". You have Isaac Okoro, who's listed at same size as well, 6'5", maybe 6'6" on a good day in some shoes. But it's tough, man. They're playing undersized, but I get why they're having to do that. I think Isaac still remains the best option to start games, maybe not necessarily to finish them, but that is where we are at from an entry standpoint. And you're definitely missing Jarrett Allen out there. Again, it was good to see Dean Wade suit up. I had a feeling that was going to be the case based upon some of the reporting that we saw prior to today's game and being able to watch him warm up and whatnot. Felt like he was going to suit up, and thankfully he did. And hopefully that continues to be the case throughout the rest of this series for however long it lasts. But if you, I just want to say, if you guys came away with anything tonight, it's that Cleveland does have the requisite ability to stand toe to toe with this team. They just have to knock down some damn shots. Now I get it. Boston in game 2, they were pitiful from 3-point distance, and they were held far below actually their 3-point shooting average of 42.5 attempts per game. And tonight they didn't necessarily pull the trigger a ton either as well. They shot just 34 attempts. Cleveland again held them below 35. And they were efficient with those looks, going 13 of 34, which is 38% if I'm not mistaken. But at the same time, Cleveland slowed things down and they made them play their game. And I thought that Cleveland, for what it's worth, they had some quality looks. They just missed them. And if you knock down even a few of those, the complexion of this podcast, the complexion of the game is a lot different. There are some good things to take away, though. They continue to take care of the basketball overall. Maybe not that first quarter. Again, 6 turnovers in the first quarter. That is inexcusable. But from a game standpoint, they didn't turn the ball over a ton. I thought that the shot quality was fine. I thought that Donovan Mitchell was excellent as always, and you're starting to get more out of Caris LeVert, but it has to be a full game effort. It can't be Karras is coming to play in second halves of basketball, and Dean coming back. That's definitely a positive. Lord Luke says, I think JB should try some Damian Jones, Evan Mobley minutes together. I think they can be some, I think that could be some rim protection. We can hang with the Celtics, but Tatum and Brown get to the rim at will. Certainly they do. Tatum, he's top 10 in free throws, if I'm not mistaken. He draws a ton of contact. Brown and Tatum were excellent drivers of the basketball. Just excellent drivers of the basketball. They can get to the charity stripe at will. And that will continue to be the case as long as Jarrett Allen is not out there, right? Evan Mobley can only do so much. He can only, and if you need a perfect example of that, look no further than the last Al Horford triple, which pulled Evan Mobley out to the perimeter for a contest, right? For a contest. And if you're going to do that, you're going to end up living with the results 9 times out of 10. Al Horford is coming off of back-to-back season shooting above 40%, but at the same time, it is on lower volume, and you're in a lineup for Boston that is stacked with excellent shooters. You're probably going to live with Al Horford taking that shot more often than not. And I mean, it worked for the most part, right? Al scored just 2 points tonight on 1 of 7 from the field, including 0 of 6 from three-point distance. But the very threat or the very ability that he has to take that shot, that's a dangerous thing. Even without Kristaps Porzingis out there, they still have the ability to operate 5 out, which essentially pulls Jarrett down, which essentially pulls Evan Mobley out of the paint and onto the perimeter, where we know that he can hold his own. But when that becomes the case, you have nobody to defend the rim. And that size disadvantage that guys like Isaac Okoro or Mack Strus or sometimes Dean Wade at points, that's really going to start to show and start to hurt you because you don't have anybody who can oppose Jalen or Jason. You just don't have it. And I maybe you try Damian Jones, but I don't think the Cavaliers are going to look to do that. I think they're probably going to lean in on the trio of Isaac, Marcus, and Dean for however long Jarrett Allen is out. I don't think they're going to turn to Damian Jones. It's certainly possible. Tristan Thompson, he deserves a mention here too. Played just 5 minutes then. I thought he came up pretty big in game 2, but wasn't nearly as impactful tonight. But yeah, I mean, there are definitely some good takeaways here. Tom K says, good to have Dean. Small ball was not bad. Clawing Cavs back for a bit. Yeah, their ability to space the floor, right? Their ability to draw defenders outside of the paint so that Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland are not constantly collapsed on upon them driving to the basket or them receiving the ball, right? They're not going to get trapped as often if that is the case. But you're not going to be able to get away with that for the entire game. You have to have some size out there at certain points. And by virtue of Jarrett Allen not being available, you're starting the game going small with Isaac at the 4. But if that's going to be the case, Isaac has to be able to knock down that shot as well, because they're giving him all the space in the world to be able to knock those shots down. And it is a gamble that they're taking that paid off tonight. It didn't pay off necessarily in game 2. It didn't pay off necessarily in game 1 as he was okay from 3-point distance, but it certainly paid off tonight as he dropped an offer from 3-point distance and was just 1 of 7 from the field. Another takeaway, as Borath Gorpati points out down here, there were at least 2 or 3 different occasions where JB had a really, really good ATO. Borath says JB had some amazing ATOs today, but Mazzulla making his adjustments before and during the game really punched us. Every time we tried to call back, Mazzulla was ready with a timeout. Just smart coaching. Mazzulla is a good coach, great coach even, but he's also working with a really, really talented roster. Not to say that Cleveland isn't. But these two teams do things a little bit differently. Boston, they live and die by the 3 generally. But one of the things that really stuck out to me was honestly their work within the painted area. These guys, they're not really They're not somebody who's going to kick your ass inside of the paint. But guess what? They actually scored 50 of their 106 points tonight within the painted area to Cleveland's 48. And we know Cleveland, um, they're a little bit more diversified this year in terms of how they generally operate. They love the three ball a lot more than they have in years past, and they've been able to convert on them more than they have in years past. But essentially, especially with Jarrett Allen out there, they can still beat you up inside. Boston, conversely, they don't generally operate that way. But tonight, I felt like they adjusted. And if you watched my last pod with Nikki Goel of Cavs Nation, when he asked me what adjustment I thought that they would end up making, what did I say? I said that they would end up trying to get shit going from inside. They weren't going to continue, they weren't going to jack up even more triples, and that has been the case. They took even less triples tonight, if I'm not mistaken. They ended up driving, drawing a ton of contact, making some contested twos, making sure that they were trying to hit up that mid-range area, and they beat the Cavs from within the paint. That's exactly what I thought they would do, and credit to Joe Mazzulla for doing that and for having a counter for what Cleveland was able to do. Beast Girl says, "Yeah, I'm cool, Mac. I'm up here watching Royals and Angels game. That's going to relax my mind for the night." Good for you, man. I hope you do not let this game ruin your night on this beautiful weekend that we have. That is Mother's Day weekend. Go out there and celebrate your moms tomorrow as this is airing. Don't let it piss you off too much. Definitely a game. Anytime the Cavaliers lose, I get it. People are going to be frustrated. I'm definitely frustrated in certain regards as well, but I'm not going to let the night be ruined by that. And I'm certainly not going to feel discouraged for the rest of the series, because I do believe that they have what it takes to make this a very competitive series and possibly even win it. Floyd Phillips II says, once again, Cavs are inconsistent. Imagine having a strategy that works well enough to earn you a 24-point win in game two, i.e., getting to the rim, playing inside out, and you totally ignore that strategy. For what it's worth, I didn't necessarily feel like they completely forgot about that strategy or went away from it. I just thought that Boston adjusted. They collapsed on Evan Mobley even more than they did in game two, and that really is your only interior presence. And then when you have Donovan Mitchell going off like he is in quarter one for 11 points, and then quarter two for 12 points, and knocking down six triples, in that stretch, I do believe that you were letting Don go to work. And the problem was nobody else was stepping up, man. I thought that they tried to get the ball to Evan Mobley. They tried to get him touches, but Boston had solid counters for that. They routinely packed the paint, especially after watching the likes of Mack, Strus, Isaac Okoro, Darius Garland struggle to knock down three-point attempts. They're just going to pack the paint and dare you to shoot. That's exactly what happened. I did not feel like the Cavaliers completely went away from that strategy, but what are you going to do when you're not knocking down shots? They actually did that in game two, right? Karis LeVert, Darius Garland down the stretch, Donovan Mitchell, obviously, Isaac Okoro even came in there, Max Strus. There were some shots being knocked down. I just didn't feel like that was the case tonight. Barath says, I agree. We went away from attacking Cornette and Hauser. I didn't understand that. We won that matchup every time. I thought that they actually tried to drive in on these guys, man. Did you, or maybe I'm just not watching the same game, but I honestly thought that guys like Karis LeVert, I can't recall how many times I watched Karis LeVert drive or Darius Garland drive in that first half and nothing come of it. Nothing came of it, man. And that's essentially, in my opinion, what ended up happening. You weren't able to get anything going in the paint for early stretches of this game, and in the third and fourth quarter, by the time you've wasted so much of your energies trying to scratch and claw back into it, you just didn't have enough going. The shots just never really started to fall for everybody else. I mean, Don, he was 7 of 12 tonight, and considering the fact that Cleveland took 36 total three-point attempts tonight, I mean, that production is basically all Don, right? You take away those 12 attempts from that, you're left at the rest of the collective going 5 of 24, if I'm not mistaken. That is just not going to cut it. I don't care how you slice it. Guys have to be able to knock down shots. And I thought that's what essentially doomed the Cavs. I thought the game plan was still essentially the same, especially on the defensive side of the ball, but Cleveland just couldn't get anybody else to really contribute. And the bench continues to be a sore spot. Just 20 points tonight from, Karras, Dean, Merrill, Morris, Thompson. But at the end of the day, they gotta figure this shit out. Ross says, I don't know. I just remember some time during the game, Hauser switched on to Mitchell and didn't look to attack. He just tried to pull up and take a bad shot. Now, I will say this. There was at least 1 to 2 possessions, especially as the Cavs were calling down the stretch to get back into it, that I felt like Don should have tried to lean on his teammates more. But in a game where nobody is really showing up, I understand why he may have chosen to go that route, right? Essentially, because nobody was knocking down shots, Don was going to continue to take it upon himself because he clearly had it going. But there are certain points when I want him to trust his teammates a little bit more rather than pulling up or taking a bad shot or driving into 2 or 3 defenders and trying to make a circus layup, even though he can make those at a higher degree of difficulty than most people seem to be able to do in this game of basketball. But overall, not a truly discouraging night. I thought I came away with a couple of positives, and I have not often said this, but I thought JB coached a pretty decent game tonight. I know that might sound like sacrilege. I know people are probably going to disagree with me just purely based upon some of the rotations or some of the some of the shots that were doled out tonight, but I also felt like the ATLs were as good as we have ever seen him be able to come up with during the course of this season, maybe even the course of his coaching career in Cleveland. I thought that the players just didn't step up. So if I'm gonna have a blameometer, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, if I'm gonna place blame on anybody, it is definitely a collective effort out there, but I do feel like the bulk of the blame for this loss goes on the players outside of Donovan Mitchell. You got to knock down shots. It is JB's job to scheme up open looks for them, but I thought they had some good looks out there tonight. I just felt like they were not able to knock them down. That said, coming off a game 3 loss to the Celtics on our home court, I'm very interested to see how JB ends up countering, right? I am very interested to see what adjustments he will make because we saw what Boston was able to do. They didn't lean into 3-point shooting even more. They decided to attack the interior of our defense without Jarrett Allen out there, without that huge rim protecting presence that is Jarrett Allen. They continue to go out there and drive, especially Jason and Jalen. It's tough to overcome when you have star level talent out there that opposite you that can draw so much contact and knock down so many tough shots. But I'm very interested to see how JB is able to adjust in game 4, which we'll still have the home court advantage for that, but it's pivotal. If the Cavaliers end up losing game 4, I you can probably kiss this series goodbye. I'm comfortable saying that. I feel like if Boston is able to emerge victorious in game 4 and take a 3-1 series lead, it's probably all she wrote. If as it heads back to Boston, Boston will probably end up winning the series in a gentleman's sweep if they're able to take game 4, which has become pivotal. We all thought that game 3 would be pivotal and trying to go up 2-1 on Boston, and that would have been great. But considering the stakes here, considering the fact that they will be on their home court, no, if they end up winning game 4, I think that will probably be it for this series. It's not impossible to come back from. We've seen this team do a lot of things over their history, but it does not history does not generally bode well when you go down 3-1. We all know that. Mamadou says I would try to have Mobley and Double T together and see how it goes. The lack of size is tough. I mean, possibly. I think the problem a lot of times is that Boston is able to operate 5 out, and so you don't want Tristan Thompson out there for too long. He'll be out there in stretches, right? But you have to finesse his minutes in a way that aligns right with what Boston is able to do. We know that Cleveland is okay and comfortable leaving or sagging off of Al Horford, even though he is a 40% plus shooter from 3-point distance in back-to-back seasons. But I don't think they were too comfortable with that pairing more often. I think they would feel more comfortable playing either or. And I understand why that is, because you're still getting spacing. And to Floyd Phillips the second down here, he says, stop shooting threes, get to the rim, play inside out. Cavs have no identity. We have no clue what to expect from night to night. New coach, more identity and roles. I mean, well, time will tell. We shall see. I think a huge piece of that, man, honestly, is having to play so damn small. We're literally starting Isaac Okoro, a 6'5" forward, or two. Honestly, I consider Isaac Okoro more 2 than 3. Um, if that's news to anybody. But we're starting a 6'5" Isaac Okoro at the power forward position when he's clearly not suited to be there for large stretches. If you're going to try and counter what Boston is doing, I think it would behoove you to have more spacing out there and continue to still shoot that 3 ball, Floyd. I disagree with you in that regard, because with how well they shoot the basketball, I think that you're not going to be able to keep pace with them over the course of an entire game. But I do think that you have to be able to knock down a healthy amount of triples to be able to withstand the firepower that they bring to the table, even without Kristaps Porzingis. So I think it would be a mistake to go away from the 3 ball completely, even though they're not knocking them down with too much with too much efficiency right now. I still think your best shot is to continue to try and do that. Maybe try and draw up something a little bit more for Max outside of just him literally trying to shoot off screens, or Sam Merrill. I do not feel like JB draws up a ton for the likes of Sam Merrill when he's out there, outside of those above the break triples that we know he loves to take. Tune in says, hope Max Strus have a good shooting night next game, and nice to see D-Wade finally playing now. We can use Allen. Yeah. Dean is one of those guys, especially from a spacing standpoint, that needs to be able to give you something there, right? Knock down 2 or 3 triples. He had a number of pretty decent looks today that he failed to drop down. I thought that if he was able to do that, that would have definitely helped off that bench. Wade was just 2 of 6 from the field, including 1 of 4 from 3-point distance. You have to get more from him in that regard. Blue Tober season says give Emoni Bates minutes. Emoni Bates is ineligible on a 2-way contract. You are not eligible to appear in the postseason, sadly. So you will not be seeing Emoni. That's why you're seeing him in street clothes during the broadcast, my friend. Maybe next year. We'll see. Jack Fouquet says Donovan disappeared the last 5 minutes of the fourth. Dude, he's gassed, bro. Yeah, I see you say it down here as well. He was gassed. Should have sat at the beginning of the fourth. Yeah, I think that in a game, though, of this magnitude, because Donovan did play 43 minutes tonight, it's pretty easy to see that he's gassed, pretty easy to see why he's gassed, because he's only motherfucker out there doing shit offensively most of the time. He took the bulk of the shots tonight. Nobody else took more than Darius Garland's 15. And I know that we have been on Darius all season long to be more aggressive, shoot the basketball more, pull the trigger when you're able to, or just attack inside, right? Look to get to the interior of the defense. Hopefully he's able to do that over these remaining couple of games. The Cavs season has been on the line for a while now, and it will officially be the biggest game of the postseason, in my opinion, in Game 4. As if every game isn't the biggest game of the season for this team moving forward. But I say all that to say, going into Game 4, I am going in with the assumption that if they end up losing, the series is probably going to end up being written, right? It'll probably end up being over as we approach Game 5. But if they're able to win Game 4, I do feel like they have a solid opportunity on their hands to walk away with a series victory. or at the very least, make this thing go 7 games, right? We shall see. Time will tell. No need for me to beat a dead horse here. I've been yapping for long enough. Like I always tell you guys, if you'd like to reach out to me, you know how you can. It's Cavalier_pod on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and more. If you'd like to be added to the It's Cavalier Discord chat, you know what to do. Leave a rating, leave a review, send a screenshot of said review to itscavalier53@gmail.com, and I will send you an invite. Now, it was brought to my attention the other day that I have not been checking my emails, right? I noticed that I had pending I had people in there that had sent me screenshots and shit like that, but I had failed to actually add them. So I went ahead and did that. I'm going to try and be a little bit more consistent at doing that. And hopefully we can get this Discord chat thing rolling here. We got to definitely try and beef that up. We do have a fair amount of people in there, but I would like to get that boosted. And again, if you want to help support the channel, you know what to do. Consider becoming a paid member on Patreon. The link will be in the description. But with that being said, go out, enjoy your Mother's Day holiday. Hopefully you don't let this game get you too far down. And go Cavs.